How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. It's my first Monday meal, so it's exciting.
Yay! Super excited to have you on, have you joining the Oakland Rising family. Welcome aboard.
It's really exciting, and I'm looking forward to like working with everyone, and maybe this will be one of many Monday meals I will join you in.
I, so, Evelyn, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get here to Oakland Rising?
Yeah, it kind of feels like a full circle kind of moment. I think when I became familiar with Oakland Rising, I think it was back in like 2010. And it was actually through the Ella Baker Center of Human Rights. I actually met one of the directors while I was working. I was in college, and as I was helping her, she mentioned the organization, and they were looking for some fellows. And my background had been in like politics campaigns, like in school, but a lot of like um, working with the College of Ethnic Studies. And so when I became involved with the Ella Baker Center, they did a lot of work around civic engagement. And back then was like banning the box, like that was a big campaign. And so it was such a great experience. I think, well, one, I always say, like, just overall going to San Francisco State, I feel like shaped my life, but being around really solid organizers who I felt like trained me, right? It wasn't just like, here are your talking points and just go knock on doors. It was like, this is our purpose, this is our goals, this is why we are talking to community. And we talk to community in the flatlands, right? That was our main focus, Black and Brown communities. And they were tough conversations, like people were not always had the time to talk to us. And so it really, I think it was firsthand of like these are people's experiences, and we have to somehow connect these priorities into allowing them to give us a little bit of their time so that we can all both work together to like a larger goal. Um, and I think throughout, my tenure in working in politics and government, I think as a person of color, as a Latina woman here in California, it's always been about empowering our voices, Black and Brown communities, especially Latino folks. Um, and through the years of working in campaigns and in government, I think I was always searching for like a space where you can kind of really utilize my toolbox. And I think I was just in the state of my life where I was really ready to do that and not just do it as um, someone behind the scenes, because that's a very comfortable place for me, because I like to uplift people. I like to make sure that people are growing and growing our purpose. But I think it was really a time for me to step up, lead a team, and lead a team in the way that I feel is most successful, which is empowering your team, having a really powerful, strong team who will make sure that you're grounded in your values. And I think that full circle to Oakland Rising, I think it's just really perfect timing, that this role happened to be opened, and that now I'm able to join people like Pacolia, who's so amazing. I'm just like, I hope she takes naps because I know she's always working.
You know darn well we don't get no nap. But if you tell me, boss lady, I will make it
Okay, I will put it on everyone's calendar. Take naps, please.
happen. That'd be funny. Like people get a response.
I
Like,
know.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Thanks so much for sharing. I think I enjoy learning about how you got connected into Oakland Rising, and and how it connects to, like, I think often we do things in college that don't necessarily connect to our
Hmm.
careers, what we do for work. But it's always good to like know that like there is that connection for
Yeah.
us, and also to like encourage folks that college is actually useful.
for me, actually, like what I learned in college actually was put into practice.
Yeah, right.
Um,
Some- I have I have a college student who's a senior this year, and she always questioned like, will this actually
yeah.
be practical? And I think it's always good in our movement to be able to lift up those times where you're like, actually, I did use some of that stuff. But so tell us about like what makes you excited about being here
Mhm.
at Oakland Rising as our new executive director. And maybe also tell us like what are you looking forward to Oakland Rising doing over this next, you know, year? We have an election coming up, excitement around like what it's going to take to get people to vote.
Yeah. I think I'm really excited to join Oakland Rising, especially now because you all have grown so much. I think that folks who've worked in small teams just know how much tougher it is to be a team of two or a team of three. And we have like our own departments, right? So we have like really great teams. And I think that shows that like our partners and community like trust the work that we've done and that you have a track record, right? Because that's where you're investing. And that's where we were able to build things out. And I think that this specific team just has so much knowledge and experience that we can really elevate the work locally and nationally. As we know, right, social media is really the vehicle to move our messaging, to move our campaigns. And I think we really have a great, comms team and programs team that, is going to make sure that we are pushing the envelope and that are holding people accountable and that also we can push campaigns that, I think we can win. um, and what I'm excited about this year is that we do have this new group of fellows. So that's really exciting. And I think it resonates with me too. That I was also an intern, a fellow in the past, and just how exciting it is to come in and to work with like really strong, like women of color who are just teaching you like yes the skills but also you're able to see how hard they work, and how impactful their work is. So I hope that we can, I think as the organization, like make that impact for these fellows, and maybe these fellows can also come back in the future. You just never know.
Hmm. I think I'm really excited too about the fellows because just to give folks background, like we typically only go out and do outreach twice a year, sometimes three, like a spring, a summer, and a fall. And what the Canvas and Outreach Fellows really get to help expand our
Mhm.
capacity is all the work in between. So those what we call civic engagement programs where we're going out and doing education for voters, but being able to have that capacity to do that not only on the doors and on the phones, but also out at community events 365 year is just way more exciting for us because then we get to have deeper conversations with voters. We get to have deeper conversations with residents.
Mhm.
We dive into some of these issues around racial and economic and environmental justice, right? And what that
Mhm.
means here in Oakland because there's
Yeah. Right.
happening.
Right.
Speaking of, yeah, so much happening.
Every year it's something. But I think the one thing that we can always look forward is like, I think taking a step closer to what does it look like to really work collaboratively. And I think that's what people really look to Oakland Rising for, to unite people, to spread the word. And this is going to be a really tough election year. Everybody saw the presidential debate this past week. And so I think that we really need to like share some type of hope, same some type of realistic hope of like bring it back home. Like just think globally, but what do you do locally? And I think really helping folks not feel like all is lost, and what they can do in the city of Oakland, what they can do in Alameda County, and that their vote really does matter. And you know, we can also continue to educate folks on what these elections mean.
Yeah. So we are owning what 128 minutes. I feel like
Only.
I posted that number. I'm like,
Don't worry, we will all have a countdown on our phone very
let me
soon.
see, 127. I had to look it up. Yesterday was so we're 127 days away from the general election. For those who don't know, the general election is our biggest election coming up. This is a presidential election. And there are so many things at the national, the state, and the local level coming up. Part of our role as Oakland Rising is to keep track of what is happening and how it's happening. But a big part of our role is really making sure that voters have the information that they need to make informed decisions, right? And so one of the things we do is a voter guide, but we also go out, we do voter education. We make sure people know their voting rights. We make sure folks know how to access their, ballots, especially if, people sometimes move before they get their ballot at their current address and all those things. Um, what do you hope that Oakland Rising is able to really do this year for Oaklanders? How are you hoping we make an impact?
Wow, that's a great question. um, you know, hmm, sometimes, when you work in politics for so long, you become a little pessimistic
That's
about the work, and I think I am transitioning into like more of a hopeful place. Um, and so maybe I think that's for me. I think I hope to transition into more of a hope space. And I think for our work, um, uh, I hope that people, I hope that we gain more engagement for folks. I know that we are coming out of COVID, obviously people are still, getting sick. But I hope that we can start galvanizing that civic engagement once again. And now, obviously, we have more tools. Um, and people can do that different ways. But I hope that we can start kind of seeing the numbers, increase our volunteers year round, right? Because this fight for democracy doesn't end in November, especially in Alameda County. It's definitely going to continue. So yeah, I hope to just see a lot more people start getting involved, get involved, and yeah, just and then show up to our party on July 18th. I think that would be short term.
that.
Uh,
Yeah. If you don't know, July 18th, Oakland Progressive Party, biggest party of the year in Oakland. At least that's what I think. Where we be county awards, and really just celebrating the idea of being a progressive, being someone who believes in really advancing the types
mhm,
of solutions that really shake up the way the status
mhm,
quo, right? I always wonder. I was, have to reground myself on a regular basis, like what's a progressive and what's a conservative and what's all those things.
mhm,
But I think that at the core, what I really love about this organization, and proud to be the political director of, is that we get to play with the idea of what is racial justice in
mhm,
Oakland, what is
mhm,
justice in Oakland, what
mhm,
economic justice look like here in Oakland.
mhm.
And I think we are moving some amazing work together as a
Yeah.
city forward. I'm really proud that ground has really broke on the 100% affordable housing at the East
Mhm,
Street site. I think that
mhm,
victory of proving that 100% affordability can
yeah.
happen is
Mhm,
important. I also think that Black Panthers housing development launching as being
mhm,
100% affordable. housing,
Mhm.
kind of shake up the idea of housing as a commodity,
Mhm.
right? Necessity, a foundational
Mhm.
component of.
Mhm.
So I always think of like, for me,
Mhm.
what are the things that make tangible change for my family, right? For
Yeah.
my community. And I think housing is a really big one.
Mhm.
Very excited to see things on the ballot at the
Mhm.
state and regionally about pushing the idea of government's responsibility in building housing.
Yeah.
So that's like my big thing. I see so many people, have so many parent leaders, student
Mhm.
leaders who cannot afford to live here in Oakland anymore, right?
Yeah.
But love this city, still come to school here, even if they live 4 or 5 cities
Right.
away. But they're here because they believe in the work that we are doing here in Oakland. They believe in this transforming our city into a city that works for everyone.
Mhm.
They believe in that so much, but they just can't afford to
Yeah.
live here because put the proper supports in place. Um,
Right.
Excited this November about this general election, about like what we're going to potentially move forward
Mhm.
on housing.
Mhm.
Because I don't know about you, but for me, I grew up with the experience of being homeless before.
Mhm.
I would never want anyone to experience that, and I think we've come light years ahead of having more family housing
Right.
options of when you're experiencing a crisis like houselessness.
Yeah.
But we're far from where we want to be, right?
Yeah. And like also having a home that is livable, right? Because we have, I grew up moving a lot when I was young. But a lot of issues that we have had in our apartment, my parents as immigrants didn't want to report anything to the landlord or the building manager, but we could have very well been living in mold infested spaces, which I know a lot of my friends and family have in the past, and so I think that part of our educational campaigns is also in a way sharing with the public of how these efforts are really made. Like the government doesn't just decide one day, let me give you this 100% affordable housing. Like it's not that we're waiting in line for them to get there. It's that you have to really fight for it, and then you have to work with other partnerships. In addition to like our health, right? I think, our water that we drink, the air that we breathe, even in the city of Oakland and the county of Alameda, there are areas where the air is very clean, and you have, 5 miles away, the air is so polluted that you can also, have issues with asthma and so forth. And so I think that as we continue with educational campaigns, we start integrating folks on like how we are thinking of this holistically, how all of this, from what happens in the port of Oakland, what happens with we're having this heat wave. For me it's heat wave because I'm not used to this heat in Oakland. um, um but how all is that connected to like what we're building, when we're building, what foods we're eating, what foods we have access to, who doesn't, right? And how all of this is connected to our campaigns and politics, and how we can more effectively vote as a group,
Mhm.
um, because I think that we have to make sure that we are voting in numbers, that we are voting collectively, and that part of, I think lastly, part of that um, kind of mobilization is also somehow bringing folks who may be working when there's like a 1:30 p.m. city council meeting, that can attend. It's like, how can we bring your voices to the table? How can we make sure that you're being heard? But we can only do that if we are all engaging together, right? And sharing like our messages.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a good point. Like, it's not just about us going out and getting people to vote, but there's also like engaging in the civic process, right? And
Hmm.
being able to point to how our local government is really being responsive
Hmm.
to the demands of residents, being responsive to the responsibilities that they have, and
Mm-hmm.
that the city is being managed in a way that does move us
Mm-hmm.
closer to our health and happiness
Yeah.
and opportunity
Mm-hmm.
and all, right? And so, we always talk about the voting part, but we also need to always be mindful that once we are finished voting, we still have to make sure those policies get implemented,
Mm-hmm.
the work
Mm-hmm.
to make sure they're implemented, they're sustained.
Yeah.
So things like this affordable housing aren't one-off blimps, or
Right.
we're only just, closing certain businesses that are big polluters, right?
Right.
Versus the number of big polluters that we have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And to the, I really, I think to your question of like what I'm excited about, I'm also really excited about democracy dollars. I've had a chance to work with political fundraising and in politics, and you know, I think some may think like this isn't something we should invest in for your own reasons, but I will tell you from being on the campaign side is that once you become a donor, you actually enter a different set of contact lists than your regular voter registration. If you become a donor at any level, you're going to consistently be informed of what that candidate is doing, what that candidate's platform is. They will directly be contacting you more often, and they will be seeking your vote. um, and I think that when folks are kind of questioning if this is something that they should support, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. Regardless if it's $5 or $25. I mean, a lot of folks have seen like AOC, she has very low donors, but once you become a donor, you enter a different database. And unfortunately, and this is just unfortunately how campaigns have worked, is like once you become a donor, you become a priority. And the reality is that all voters are not candidates priorities. And so a way that we can integrate community who hasn't been reached out to, and there are many reasons why they haven't, um, not because of their own, not because they've done anything wrong, but just how elections are ran. Um, a lot of people reach out to folks who've been able to vote 5 out of 5, right? And that usually has to do with people who are able to re-register, have been living in the same home for many years. And our communities are not always like that, right? Sometimes re-registering is not our main priority. And so at least when you become a donor, at least you're connected through your email. And they will always be able to reach you in that way, even if you changed your address. So I think that this is a brilliant way to start getting our community into that kind of priority um, 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 bubble, I
yeah,
would say, of donors.
okay. Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right, and I agree with you around like making sure that we are really mindful of the opportunity to what I call modernize
Mm-hmm,
our campaign finance system. As a former candidate, it was really difficult to really learn how to campaign finance, but more importantly, it was difficult to go out and balance between my desire to reach out to
mm-hmm,
residents, engage with residents, and really learn the issues versus
mm-hmm,
versus necessary to reach as many voters as possible through.
mm-hmm,
And I think that what I get excited about with democracy dollars is the ease that it can provide for our city to really live up to having a full, political system that's really grounded in the voices of residents and
mm-hmm,
priorities of residents versus having so much outside money. There's always this stat that Gail throws out from the League of Women Voters that really gets under my skin, which is that over 50% of our campaign finance for the city of Oakland is from outside of Oakland, right?
mm-hmm,
That the very theme that we as a city can transition is to really ensure that our political system is grounded
Mm-hmm.
in the voices and the lived experiences of our residents. And so I'm excited about Democracy Dollars for that opportunity to shift that narrative, shift that practical application to really encourage residents to flex their power in our political process. But the other part of the, Measure W, which, authorized Democracy Dollars to be in existence, that I like to always emphasize is that there is accountability necessary in our campaign finance system. We know that
Mm-hmm.
50% that's coming outside of Oakland is not always transparent. We know that
Right.
it's, dark money, as we kind of
Mm-hmm.
say, that has implications as you know, we know major donors can have implications on elections, and
Mm-hmm.
told us as well, but we've
Mm-hmm.
seen it in the news, we've seen it in our neighborhoods, we've seen it all around that,
Mm-hmm.
we want to be able to shift and
Yeah.
really align our system in the values of Oakland. And I do believe that Oaklanders want, because they spoke at the ballot, they
Mm-hmm.
do want accountability, they do want more transparency in our election system. And I think the Oakland Fair um, Elections Act, which authorizes Democracy
Yeah.
Dollars in existence, is important for that purpose. And I do hope that, with everyone's collective advocacy, we continue to move that forward and that council passes a budget really soon that funds Democracy Dollars in the first phase of startup, right? But I think that it's premature right now to know what's going to happen
Mm-hmm.
as the city budget process forward. And that's, it's not an easy process to follow. I think many of us in Oakland are trying to make sense of like the options that are being considered.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I also think for Oakland Rising, we're trying to figure out what's our role and what's our responsibility
Yeah.
in education, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like it's not a hard moment, but it is a learning moment
Mm-hmm.
for like, where do we put our resources? Is
Mm-hmm.
what we want? If what we want is being achieved, how do we sustain it so that it outlives just one or two budget cycle?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, people are going to have to make a lot of tough decisions, but you have to make tough decisions when you want change. And I think the best thing that Oakland Rising can continue to do is, push for programs like Democracy Dollars, right? We have to think and kind of push for things like this because we have to look at the larger picture, right? How is this going to help 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and not just immediate needs? But yeah, I think that, I really appreciate how we are pushing for policies and implementations that we've seen that have worked in other cities. And, I think that sometimes Oakland is the first city to do things. This time we're not. We have facts that Democracy Dollars has worked, and I really hope that council, takes advantage, of I think if they vote Democracy Dollars, then they would be taking a stance, I think, for progressive values and making sure that we are thinking long term um, versus being reactive. And yeah, I don't see how things can go bad. I think without it, I think it will set us back or keep us where we are. But yeah, so I guess we'll know very
Well,
soon
no,
if it is passed or not.
there is a deadline of
There
some,
is the
and
deadline.
I do think that you're right. Like, that Oakland isn't always the first, but there are many times where we are some of the first trailblazers, right? Now,
Mhm.
remember that, like, when you're trailblazing, you're making new things possible, right? And so
Mhm.
I think that sometimes there's a trepidation to always trailblaze in Oakland.
Right.
However, it makes Oakland unique is this, that's what makes us the town, right?
Mhm.
stay within the confines of what dance should be, what music should be, what art should be at all, right? We all
Yeah.
innovate, right? And so it would make sense that a town that's known for innovation,
Mm-hmm.
for breaking rules and barriers, would try to do that in our election system
Mm-hmm.
as well. And
Mm-hmm.
push the idea of equitable democracy, how
Mm-hmm.
sure that the residents who are most impacted by city policies are really prioritized and give
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to overcome some of the barriers that exist
Right.
just by there being injustice on the
Mm-hmm.
racial, the environmental fronts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you said it, like if I'm struggling to breathe because I'm being polluted, right? And my council has the power and the ability to make decisions to stop the level of pollution in the community. Oakland Rising wants our council to be responsive to that,
Right.
right? But we also want our council to make really solid policies that are in the interest, particularly of
Mm-hmm.
the Oakland, because at the end of the day, those are the communities. Our communities are the
Mm-hmm.
that are least served, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there are some very difficult choices ahead for council and for the mayor around how to really get us out of this, depression. Because I don't think it's a recession, and I think I'm like, we passed a recession. Did you?
We're in a recession, right? It's like we're in a recession, even though it doesn't state that we are, but we are.
It's a damn
We
depression.
are. We are. We are when the stores are saying, "Look, come shop here. We've lowered our prices."
But the prices were always sky high in the first place. Like
Right.
over the weekend, I saw one dude. He found his receipt from Walmart 2022, and he went and bought the same items at Walmart, and it was like $100 and something in 2022, and then now the same cost of those same items is $444. Like this is what we ain't talking about, right? Price gouging and the role of corporations not
Yeah.
paying their fair share. So that and
Yeah.
the end of that, and it's happening here in Oakland too.
I'm surprised every time I go grocery shopping. I'm always like, "What's it gonna be?"
Like you like, wait a minute, wait a
I'm
minute.
like, that's not bad." I'm like, "Oh,
When
okay."
did the price equal the price of eating out? I just want to know.
Oh,
I just
I
require
don't even eat out anymore because I'm like, I'm not paying these $50
exactly.
for a basic meal. Mm-mm, no, definitely. And I think to that point, like that, unfortunately, it negatively impacts our small businesses, right? Because things are very expensive. And one good thing is like I think we have a lot of young families in Alameda County, and that's great. But it's also, you have a larger family. And so you have to feed your family and multiple meals, right? And so having to go out is expensive. But then I think in my experience as a parent, we also don't have that many family friendly like spaces to eat where children can be children,
Yeah,
and so a lot of times it's just best to go home because, you're not going to like the meal or your child's not going to want to be able to feel comfortable. Um, so you go home and then you're just like, all right, let's see what all these items that come. And then I don't know about you, but these COVID children, man, they love to shop. My child loves Trader Joe's. He just shops away, just gets his own basket, and just shops.
that's like the independence and family.
They pick and choose when to be independent. Like, let me be independently shop, and then you pay for it at the end. But it's just such a difficult time. It's like you want to celebrate the wins, celebrate the work that is being done, and also, people are having a difficult time with their families, managing childcare, managing their parents, and then managing kind of the work life, which is very different after COVID. Um, and then we also want to support our businesses. So it's a lot, it's a lot, lots going on.
Not going on. And yeah, we're both moms at that, and seeking to really, demonstrate for our own kids like what it looks like to really be in this work to help people flex people power, to align forces, to really have that values based leadership. And I think, I always am asking my kids how I can do better, what they
Mm-hmm.
think.
Mm-hmm.
Come here to the office and they always give me feedback. Hey, people know those that are the ones that are like, "That's a good policy," or "No, that's stupid." They
Yeah, kids are definitely not shy of it. And I think our generation is like, I think doing a really great job at like setting boundaries and being more vocal, like women of color, of like what we need to raise our children and how that is very different than white families, and the experiences and the resources and just even where you feel safe, like taking your children to um, either be on the weekend or like in a school base. And so I really appreciate just these last few weeks from Oakland Rising on how open people are onto like what parenting looks like, you know, what parenting looks like in 2024, because it's so expensive. I think like um I think I don't ever plan to run for office, but if I ever did, I really think, and not to, I would say that I would really advocate for what it really looks like to have universal childcare for like everyone,
yeah,
like depending on like how much you make. And then in addition to that, to have like really quality childcare, right? Make sure that the teachers are being paid a salary where they can live in the city, kind of to your point where they work, but that they also are trained and that this is a profession that they actually want, right? Because you don't want to put your children in danger. And then that our facilities are quality spaces, and that people doing all types of careers, especially social justice work, that they have a place to kind of take their children to, and it alleviates some of the funding that really goes towards that. No one ever prepared me for that.
yeah.
No one ever prepared me for the, I don't know, I think it was like $25,000 when for one
It's a
year in
lot.
preschool. My college, well, I didn't pay for college, but it wasn't even that much, right?
I know, right?
You know, and so, there has to be some legislator, maybe legislators need to have more children. I don't know. But
Well, say this. I think we need more values based leadership, and part of that is more women of color, more folks with the experience of immigrating, more folks with the experience of being low income
Mhm.
need to be able to advance into these political spaces, and taking office or serving on a board or a commission,
Mhm.
which, by the way, there are so many vacancies here in the city of Oakland for our boards and our commissions, that need everyday residents with backgrounds in the child care, with backgrounds in being a small business, to
Yeah.
partake, so that we can advise our electeds, we can advise
Mhm.
our city about how to improve these
Yeah.
services that
Yeah.
delivering for us. So you're not in any way, shape, or form,
Mhm.
exempt. I will always remember the core definition of organizers to improve
Right.
lives, right? And
Right.
we sometimes get caught up with, oh, we just passing policy. No, we're passing policy as a mechanism to improve
Mhm.
people's lives,
Mhm.
as
Mhm.
organizers to
Mhm.
that very core value, right?
Mhm.
That we
Yeah.
have agreement on those things.
Yeah, I think the commissions is really important too. I've been on a few commissions, and Um, you know, um, many times I am that one person that is like, um, are we making this accessible, language accessible? You
Yeah.
know, how many languages is it gonna, where is it gonna be? Is it gonna be accessible? Like, do you need a card? Can you take the bus? What is the cost? You know, like is it look inviting to our communities? And then what is the long-term picture? How much is it gonna cost to maintain? You know, all of these things, because I think to your point, we need to have folks in leadership with the right values, with lived experiences too, because unfortunately, a lot of times if you haven't, you may you take all these things for granted, and you may think like, oh, if you're installing something at a park and you just have a logo in English, that's perfectly fine, and it's not. We have multi languages, and if in part of being um, inclusive is making sure that we have a QR code,
Yeah.
right? So you can scan it and share that experience. Oh, locations where it's going to be. I'm such a like park advocate. I'm like, we need all new parks, please.
We
Um,
do. We do.
because I end up, as I was on the commission of Parks and Recs, I was very frank of telling them, that I drive out to Castro Valley, Hayward, Berkeley, Alameda to go to parks, to go to
Mhm.
parks. And so, yeah, I think being on commissions is really important. Having that also, like, I don't know if it's values, but like wanting your city, right, to have to grow, right? I think that, like, I'm not from Oakland. I grew up in the Bay Area. I would never say I'm an Oaklander because I just feel like if you grew up in Oakland, you have a very unique lived experience. So I will never own that. um People who are like, I'm an Oaklander, this, I really hope that they like really embrace that in a way of like, how can I improve Oakland as a whole? Like,
Mhm.
not just my individual life, and maybe this is a big ask, but like, how do my contributions either be when I'm talking about Oakland or Alameda County, when I'm talking about this, like, it's all for improving it. And advocating is a good thing. It's a good thing to advocate for things to be better, for all of us.
Yeah. And I think you're like, pointing around like if you grew up, if you're born and raised in Oakland, you have a unique experience. I'm a born and raised San Franciscan. I understand that it still will always be my hometown. But I've spent equal times in both San Francisco, and I've raised my kids here in Oakland.
Mm,
And I think that like my highest hope for us is to build a lot more unity. And I
mm,
think that that's a hard, um, you know, purpose or
mm,
mandate.
mm.
But I do think it is the mandate that we have before us, and not unity in that fake unity, because I think fake unity just distracts us
Right.
from the hard conversations. And I think Oakland has some really hard conversations. I think we have a hard conversation around how to keep our city safe,
Mm-hmm.
what keeps us safe. And I think we
Mm-hmm.
have all different experiences, um, from those who have been victims of crime to
Mm-hmm.
those who have not, but who really see and want the desire of being able to feel like they can walk down the street and
Mm-hmm.
not be worried about any harm coming to them, right?
Right.
But we also know that safety is a really big component of, people wanting to not only live here in Oakland, but stay here and
Right.
invest here in Oakland.
Right.
And part of the dynamic that I think is happening is that we don't have a unifying vision for where Oakland can be,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think as a city and as a region, very reactive to how much COVID impacted our communities. I,
Mm-hmm.
uh, was very disappointed in some of our local response. But instead of just criticizing, I think getting in there and being like, okay, it's got to be different. It's got to
Mm-hmm.
be because
Mm-hmm.
there are people whose lives are literally in our hands as the
Right.
leaders, and so I think there's an opportunity for us to say a different way is possible for Oakland to move forward that doesn't require us to use recalls. It doesn't require us to have these protests about who's right and who's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't require us to utilize media to advance scare tactics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Rather, what does it look like for us to pull together and bring the types of resources to have the hard conversations around what policies and what actions are needed
Mm-hmm.
to really move Oakland forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think Oakland Rising plays a role in that, but I think every single one of you who's watching this video also play a very big role in that, in being able to understand the issues that you're concerned about and getting involved, taking action
Mm-hmm.
to really advance your position, your opinion on those
Mm-hmm.
issues, right? Um, I think sitting at city council, I'm going to just be honest, like hearing us say that spending $294,000 per cop being the only viable solution to
Mm-hmm.
public safety does not bode well with me. I do not believe that that's the only solution. I think we need a multitude of different strategies. I think we have to look at the reality of what that means for our local budget, to have that much of an expense.
Mm-hmm.
Feel really disheartening as a city commissioner to see us spend so little on our children.
Mm-hmm.
We spend less than $20 million in the city of Oakland,
Mm-hmm.
children and youth, right?
Yeah.
And to want us to do so much better for our families.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
really love, and my big thing is cut people checks, not because I need checks, but we almost closed child poverty here in the Bay Area during shelter in place orders. And part of the reason was because we gave people economic
Yeah.
resources and we
Um,
economic opportunities that since we've had to cut because we weren't able to
um,
get those funding. So I always really say, like, if we're talking about, what really works, we know universal
mhm.
basic income works. We know
Mhm.
housing for people works, right?
Yeah.
We know these things that do work, but we don't have those conversations and
Right.
we don't explain what
Right.
our millions of dollars in taxes can be actually used for,
Mhm.
what really help to reduce the negative experiences that people have. So
Mhm.
I think that's like I sit in a space very similar to what Council Member Fife raised at council meeting last, which is, when you have tough choices, how are you ensuring that you're making
Mhm.
choices with the resources you have that have
Right.
the biggest impact, right? And I do
Yeah.
think we have more conversations about that here on Monday Meals. So just dropping that preview.
No, I totally agree, and I think that I mean, if even if we just look at data, right, and we look at the demographics of who we have in Alameda County, um, the answer is clear. It's like the priority is children,
Mm,
small children, and
mm,
families,
mm.
and they're not being prioritized. They're not. And so it's really tough when people leave the county and they move to another state,
Mm.
or they move to Stockton, or they move to,
The
somewhere
long,
else. But then,
yeah.
right? And then just, I think even just trying to work proactively, if you're not investing in young children right now, in general, like universally, like on their health, physical health, dental health, mental health, like we later on, if people want to look at it like fiscally, you end up spending even
Yeah.
more, right? Even as a state, you end up spending even more. But as a community, this is what you're looking forward
Yeah.
to. These young children and families are who's going to keep your city going. And it's unfortunate that it's not even part of like the battle of what is a priority. I don't know what it'll take to get there, where our children or young children can really become a priority, and it doesn't have to come like a state ballot for people to want to fund something. But yeah, I think folks stay tuned. I think part of like our larger goal of Rock Rising will be, with amazing people like Pacolia staying up to date, but really analyzing like what are strategic decisions that we need to make based on the information that is given, based on the resources. And, I, we want to make sure that we can share that with the public, we can share that to community and keep folks up to date on, where, what city council meetings you need to attend, either be like through your phone or in person, what things to advocate for, um, amplify our messaging as well. But, I think as some folks have seen, media will have a spin to their own narrative. And so we've seen that through, national elections in our county is not any different. So we have to be really careful of what we read and who it's written by, so that we are not, fighting against one another. And so I think that with our team, we really hope to bring to the public this up to date, factual information that I think will help us grow and to, I think it'll just emphasize our progressive movement and progressive values.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's such a pleasure to introduce you, Evelyn, and all the things. I love talking with you. We can talk all day. It's good. It's
We
great.
just got to have a snack
We just
though,
gotta have
because,
a snack.
we
Yeah,
always
you
got
saw
to
me
eat.
with my pistachios. I was like, look, today I need all the brain food. So I'm trying to get my omega 3s and
Good
all
job.
all the
We're
stuff.
on it. We're
Oh,
gonna
we trying
be
to,
like fighting social justice while doing
you
lunges and
know,
weights.
I ain't trying to be out
And
here door knocking and fainting and stuff. That ain't no.
we gotta like to massage the knees. I look young, but my
Listen,
body's not young.
listen, we ain't gonna have that conversation because there's some people watching this that's like, yeah, me too. Uh,
Right.
me too, me
Everyone's
too.
like, that's why people will be like, I'd rather phone bank. I'm like, I feel you.
Well, hope that you all will come out and volunteer with us. There's so many exciting things coming up on the horizon. So many ways that we're going to be asking you in the future, very near future. What do you really want to see from Oakland Rising this year to improve our engagement of residents, of Oaklanders, of children, youth, families, workers, immigrants, formerly incarcerated. These are all the populations to whom we feel a deep sense of accountability to improve conditions, to really get us to that vision of Oakland that we all share. We hope that you all will continue to join us for Monday Meals. Our next conversations will be very steamy as we try to debrief the city budget and the county budget. My gosh, I ain't gonna say this, but y'all tapping the sister's brain out, but I'm do my best. I'm do my best. But check us out every Monday, 1 p.m., trying to get you all as much good information as possible. In the meantime, our website is www.oaklandrising.org. Check out our pages on recalls, learn more about why we stand against them. Check out our pages on democracy dollars and why we're really trying to change and upgrade our Oakland election system. And don't forget, July 18th, we have the Oakland Progressive Party coming up. If you haven't gotten your tickets, please make your way to our website. Get your tickets now. They will sell out. Or I repeat, they will sell out. So don't wait. Don't be those folks trying to get at the door. Get tickets. I'm telling you now. Other than that, please also stay safe. We know that COVID is on the rise in our communities. I really have a lot of respect for those of us who have immune compromised systems. So please make sure you wear your mask where possible, take your test. There are resources all around. Please make sure you reach out and get those. And last but not least, stay hydrated because it is hot these days and our bodies do need
Ooh.
water. Such a great Monday meal. See you soon, Evelyn. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.